The bottle of fish oil on your counter cost you $34. The probiotic capsules beside it, another $42. The multivitamin your doctor recommended, $60 a month. And none of them are doing what a simple quart jar of salted cabbage water does in a Holmes County pantry for less than $1. I need you to hear me clearly. The Amish in Geauga County, Ohio, have measurably lower rates of asthma, allergies, and autoimmune conditions than the rest of us, and Johns Hopkins researchers have spent decades trying to understand why. What they keep finding points back to one thing the plain communities never stop doing: fermentation. Living food, cultures kept alive in glass jars on kitchen counters, passed from mother to daughter for 280 years without ever needing a refrigerator, a garden, or a single penny of ongoing cost. What I'm about to show you takes 5 minutes. It needs no garden, no special equipment, no skill. And by the end of this video, I'm going to share something I learned from an 81-year-old woman named Rebecca Esch in Lancaster County that I have never heard on any cooking show, any health channel, any wellness podcast in America. My name doesn't matter much. What matters is that 3 years ago, my wife Margaret was taking 7 prescriptions, 7, for her gut, for her joints, for her sleep, for her mood. She'd been a school teacher for 31 years in Carroll County, and somewhere along the way, the woman I married had become a patient. Her own mother, God rest her, used to ferment crocks of sauerkraut in the cellar in Westminster, and Margaret remembered the smell of it, sharp and alive, rising up through the floorboards on Sunday afternoons. But Margaret had forgotten how. Her generation forgot. My generation let them forget. It was a woman named Rebecca Esch who taught us how to remember. I met Rebecca through a farrier I knew who worked the Amish farms east of Strasbourg. She was a widow in her 80s, sharp as a paring knife, and she laughed at me the first time I sat at her kitchen table and asked her about supplements. She pointed to a row of quart jars on her windowsill, 8 of them, each one glowing different shades of amber and green in the afternoon light, and she said, "That's my pharmacy. That's every pharmacy my mother had. That's every pharmacy her mother had before her." And here's what she meant. Inside those jars was something most Americans have never tasted in their lives. Not sauerkraut, exactly, not pickles, something older. The Pennsylvania Dutch call it sour brine, the salt brine vegetable ferment that Lancaster families have kept alive since the first Swiss and German migrations settled the county in 1737. It is not a recipe, it is a method. And the method produces, in 5 minutes of work, a living medicine that contains somewhere between 10 billion and 100 billion beneficial microorganisms per serving. The $42 probiotic capsule on your counter contains, on a good day, 10 billion in one capsule that you take once. 1 jar of sour brine fermenting on a kitchen counter produces enough living probiotic content to serve a family of 6 for a month. And that is before we talk about the vitamins. But I want you to understand something first. The reason you don't know how to do this is not an accident. When industrial food arrived in American kitchens in the 1940s and 1950s, an entire category of home food preservation was quietly pushed aside. Pasteurization became the gospel, canning replaced fermenting, living food was rebranded as dangerous food, spoiled food, old-fashioned food. The women who still did it were dismissed as backward. And inside one generation, the skill that had fed Europe and early America for 1,000 years disappeared from most American homes. The Amish never got the memo. They kept fermenting. And while the rest of us got sicker, their gut health stayed intact. Researchers studying Amish populations in Lancaster and Holmes counties have documented that Amish children have dramatically lower rates of asthma and allergic disease than non-Amish children living just a few miles away, and the leading explanation involves the diversity of microorganisms in their daily food and environment. Living ferments sit at the center of that diet. Now here is what makes sour brine different from anything you can buy. The sauerkraut on the grocery store shelf has been pasteurized, heated, killed. It tastes like sauerkraut, but contains almost none of the living cultures that make fermentation medicinal. The refrigerated kraut in the premium aisle, the $12 jar, is closer to the real thing, but has been sitting so long that its peak probiotic window has passed. What Rebecca Esch makes on her windowsill is alive at peak activity, measured in days, not months, and costs her about 40 cents a jar. Therefore, the question is not whether fermentation works. The question is why we ever let someone else charge us $60 a month for a weaker version of what our great-grandmothers made for pennies. Let me walk you through how the ferment lives in Rebecca's kitchen. On her counter sits a wide-mouthed quart jar, nothing fancy, the kind you find at any hardware store in any small town in America. Into the jar goes shredded cabbage, a green head from the market, cut fine with an old knife her husband sharpened 40 years ago. A handful of salt dissolves into filtered water in a separate bowl until the brine tastes like the sea. That brine pours over the cabbage until every shred is covered, and a small glass weight or a clean stone or even a smaller jar of water sits on top to keep the cabbage submerged beneath the liquid. The lid rests finger-tight, not sealed because the ferment needs to breathe. Then the jar sits. That is the whole work. 5 minutes from start to shelf. By the second day, tiny bubbles rise along the glass. By the fourth day, the brine turns cloudy, which means the lactic acid bacteria have woken up and begun their work. By the seventh day, the smell shifts from raw cabbage to something sharper, brighter, almost lemony. By day 10, in Rebecca's cool kitchen, the ferment is ready, the cabbage has softened, the brine has thickened, a quart jar has become a quart of medicine, and the brine itself, the liquid, is the part most Americans throw away. Rebecca drinks it. A small glass in the morning, her mother did the same, her grandmother did the same. The Pennsylvania Dutch have called it soup for the stomach for over 2 centuries, and modern research on fermented vegetable brines has found them rich in lactic acid, beneficial bacteria, vitamin C at levels higher than the raw cabbage contained to begin with, and B vitamins produced by the fermentation itself. Fermentation does not merely preserve food, it multiplies nutrition. Penn State Extension has published guidance confirming that lactofermentation increases the bioavailability of certain vitamins in cabbage and can generate vitamin content that was not present in the original vegetable. The Amish have known this functionally for 300 years without needing a laboratory to confirm it. But here is where Rebecca leaned across the table and told me something I had never heard anywhere. She said, "The first jar is the hardest. After the first jar, you never start from zero again." I didn't understand. She smiled the way Amish grandmothers smile when an Englishman is about to learn something his own grandmother could have told him. She reached into her pantry and brought out a small jar, maybe half a cup, cloudy brine with a few shreds of cabbage floating in it. She called it her mother, not starter, mother. She said every new jar she builds gets a spoonful of mother poured in at the beginning. The mother comes from the last jar came from the jar before. And the jar she was holding, she said quietly, carried living cultures that her own mother had kept going on a farm outside bird in hand before the Second World War. Some Lancaster families, she told me, trace their mothers back further than their family Bibles. This is the secret finale I promised you. This is the thing I have never heard on a cooking show. A spoonful of brine from one finished jar poured into the next jar at the moment of making accelerates the fermentation, strengthens the culture, and passes forward the specific microbial lineage of that kitchen. The ferment becomes faster, more reliable, more potent, and the mother, kept in the back of the refrigerator between batches, can live for years, decades, generations. You do not buy this at any store. You cannot order it online. It exists only in the hands of people who have been doing this continuously. Rebecca gave Margaret a small jar of her mother the day we left. Margaret cried in the car on the way home. She said it was the first time since her own mother died that something that felt like home had been handed to her. We have been keeping that mother alive for 2.5 years now. Every jar we make carries a spoonful forward. And Margaret, my Margaret, is down to 2 prescriptions. Her sleep came back, her joints eased, her mood steadied. Her doctor has no explanation and has stopped asking. That is what a quart jar on a kitchen counter can do. You recovered something tonight that a lot of powerful people would rather you never remembered. The skill that built immune systems in plain communities for almost 3 centuries. The skill your grandmother likely watched her own mother practice before industrial food convinced her to throw the Crocs away is sitting in your kitchen right now, waiting for a head of cabbage and 5 minutes of your time. You are not a patient. You are the daughter or son of women who knew how to feed a family without a pharmacy. That knowledge is yours by birthright, and nobody had the right to take it from you. I want you to do one thing for me before you close this video. Tell me in the comments whether your grandmother or your mother ever kept a crock, a jar, a cellar ferment of any kind, and what state she lived in. I read every single one of these, and the stories that come in from Ohio, from Pennsylvania, from Indiana, from the Shenandoah Valley, from small towns I have never heard of, are the reason I keep making these videos. Your memory matters. Someone reading your comment tonight will remember their own grandmother because of what you wrote. And if you want to keep recovering what industrial America took from our kitchens, subscribe. This channel is a quiet community of Americans who are done waiting for permission to know what their great-grandmothers knew. Next week, I am walking into a Holmes County bakery before sunrise to show you what Amish women do with a cast iron pan and a handful of seeds that pulls more minerals out of a single slice of bread than most of us get in a day. You will not want to miss it. Your pharmacy is ajar. It always was.